Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Amanda Augustine and I'm a career advice expert for TopResume, the largest resume writing service in the world. You can request a free resume review at any time by going to topresume.com. And I'm so excited that you can all join us for our monthly installment of Office Hours. Happy New Year. This is our first Office Hours of 2018 and I'm so excited to be sharing it with you. If you're new to these, every month we pick a different topic. I provide some strategies and practical tactical tips to help you overcome a particular hurdle in your job search, and then we open it up to live Q&A. You can ask your question in the chat bar below, or some people have submitted them ahead of time through our Ask Amanda form. So we're going to do a variety of questions on anything and all things related to the job search. But today's live chat is really about if you are one of the 65%, let's try it again. If you are one of the 65% who committed to finding a new job in the new year, this chat is especially for you because we all know how hard it is to keep a New Year's resolution or any goal for that matter. When I was really into spin, I always remember our instructor saying, don't worry, if you can just stick it out till February, all the bikes will be available again because all the New Year's resolutionists will have dropped out by then. So we're coming up on that critical period, the first couple weeks of February, where most people who set a goal in January are now starting to let that goal slide. So I'm here to stop you before that happens and help you basically re-energize your job search. And not only that, but help you with some strategies to make sure that you stay on track well beyond the beginning of February and you achieve your goals. If you're just joining us now, welcome. Thanks for coming. My name is Amanda Augustine. I'm a career advice expert here at TopResume, the largest resume writing service in the world. And you can request a free resume review at any time by going to topresume.com. And today we're here to talk about what you can do to not only stick to your resolution to find a newer, better job, but tricks of the trade that will help you just establish and set up a better job search process from the get-go. I'm going to be sharing five pretty simple tips, but they truly do make a difference when you're trying to commit to finding that new and better job. Is everybody ready? All right, here we go. Step one to sticking to your job search resolutions. If you haven't done this already, you really need to clarify your job goals. Simply saying you want a new job doesn't necessarily help you make that goal come to fruition, right? What I'd like you to do is take a step back and really think about what are you looking for in a new job. It could be somewhere where the commute's better. It could be more money. It could be doing something you're more passionate about. It could be simply hitting that next level or that next rung on the ladder in your career and taking it to that next step. But for everyone, it's a little different. And I really find that the longer I'm in the workforce, the more my goals change. As things in my life change, so do my priorities and what I want to get out of a job. And I think everyone has to realize that and say, okay, what I wanted in, say, my 20s is not necessarily what I want in my late 30s, early 40s. And really evaluate what are you looking for in this job, because there's no such thing as one ideal job for everyone. So a couple exercises I would recommend doing if you're having trouble figuring out really what do those goals look like. Take a step back and review what you've already done in your career. I normally call this, the trip down memory lane or the nitty gritty, but really make a list of every role you've ever held, paid and not paid, internship, full-time, permanent, freelance, volunteer, but make a list and next to that create two columns. One, in nitty-gritty detail, what did you like about that role? What did you like about that work experience? And then in the next column, what didn't you like about that experience? What didn't jive with you? Whether it's what you were doing, what you were being paid, how you were treated by your manager, what the corporate culture was like, what the commute was like. Any of those things could contribute either positively or negatively to your experience. And fill that out and really think about it. Take a step back and identify where are the trends? What does it seem to do where do there seem to be a trend into what do I like doing and what do I not really like doing? What doesn't make sense for me going forward? Other goals that you can take on, you can get really abstract and just say, okay, if I could hold any job in the world, what would those top 5, 10 jobs be? And it doesn't matter if I possess the right skills or it would make enough money or anything like that, but what are all those dream jobs that I wish I could do that may or may not make sense for me at this point in my life and who I am? And again, although those may not all be realistic goals, there may be some themes there that help you identify, do you like working in a collaborative environment, or do you really like being your own boss? Do you want to be involved in art in some way, shape, or form? Do you prefer a very traditional office setting? But all those things will help you figure out, okay, here are some hints as to what might work for you. Now, those are only a couple goals, and there's a couple of exercises, and there are a ton more out there, but honestly, that is not the focus of today's chat, so I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. I'm sure, of course, it's not one of the articles that I gave my team ahead of time, but we do have an article out there that I wrote that has a number of job goal exercises if you're having trouble coming up with those. The most important thing is to really take a step back and say, what am I looking for in my next job? And be specific as to types of titles, types of industries, the types of companies you want to work for. I do find it important to create a target company list. That is definitely one of the links I have available to share. So your list of target companies, because that will also help you clarify your job goals a little bit further. Write out your goal. That first step is clarifying your goals, but it really is also writing them down, because you're 10 times more likely to achieve any goal when you write it down. So write down exactly what type of role you're looking for, what would the work environment be like. And then if you really want to take it a step further, this is some of that actualizing kind of stuff, write a short blurb out that if you got this job, what would it mean? So define success for you. If you landed this job, why would this be so great for you? Is it because you think you'd have better work-life balance, or you'd be doing something that you're truly passionate about, that you feel you'd be getting the recognition that you deserve based on all of your experience? Whatever it is, take the time to actually write out, if I achieve this goal, what would that mean for me? Why is this so much better for me? Because if you can visualize what that experience would be like, you're much more likely to buy into your goal, and you're much more likely to keep it throughout the next few months. And I say that as I know everybody wants to land the job in 30 days or less, but the reality is that the average job search takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months. When we were in a really bad recession, it was going up to 10 months. When the economy is really, really great, we would say 3 months. Right now, I'd say we're more around that 6 to 8 month mark. So that's not for everybody, and of course the whole point of us chatting today is to try and find ways to cut down that time, but it gives you an idea that you need to have that mindset and understand that this isn't a sprint, this is a marathon, and you need to check off certain boxes along the way and reach certain milestones, but it's all on this journey to finding the ultimate goal that you're after. Something else I'd like to point out is your job goal is more of a long-term goal, something that you ultimately want to achieve. There may be a few stepping stone jobs in between that are going to help you gain the experience, the networking connections, and the qualifications to truly be desirable and qualified for the role you're going after. So keep that in mind. And if you're not sure if that's the boat you're in, definitely invest in some informational interviews. Reach out to people who are in the industry you want to be in, or higher up on the food chain in a career that you're already pursuing, and pick their brains. Ask them what their career path was like and what they did, and get their honest feedback on what skill sets you may be lacking that you need to fill before you can achieve the goal you're really after. So that's a lot about goals. If you've just joined us, my name's Amanda Augustine. I'm a career advice expert at TopResume, the largest resume writing service in the world. You can request a free resume review at any time by going to topresume.com. And today we're talking all about how you can keep those job search resolutions and land the job you deserve. Our step one was clarify your goals. Really define your job goal, define what success looks like for you if you landed that job, and make sure you write all of it down, because you are 10 times more likely to achieve your goal when you write it down. Step 2, set a schedule. Now, most industry experts will tell you that if you are employed, you should be spending on average 15 hours a week on your job search. And if you're unemployed, you should be spending a minimum of 30 hours a week on your job search, because looking for a job is a full-time job. And that's the double-edged sword there, right? That's always what gets you. If you're employed and looking for work, it's really challenging because you're taking on a completely second job. And it can definitely be challenging. Technology helps. Mobile technology helps quite a bit. Being able to have, an iPad where you can do some work and it's off of company time, that's very helpful. But I know it's a challenge. That's a lot to get done. And I know it's not realistic for most people. It's ideal, but it's not realistic. So what can we do to cut down on that time? I really recommend blocking out chunks of time to do different activities. For instance, there was a really great study that came out by TalentWorks recently. Fast Company did a story on it. If you go to my team, if you go to our press room and you look at the latest article we did with Fast Company, it has really great links to this survey that has a lot of data on when you should apply to jobs, what time of day, what day of the week, all these sorts of things. Little things you can do that will help your application's chances of really being seen and vetted by a recruiter. I think it's really important that if you set up a schedule that takes that information into account. For instance, you want to set aside a chunk of time on Mondays to review and apply to positions. You want to apply to the jobs that you find within the first 72 hours of them being posted online, because studies have shown that after the first 72 hours, the chances of your application being reviewed, let alone even considered for the position, plummet. So the early bird does really catch the worm when it comes to online job applications. So definitely chunk out your time so that one day is spent on online applications, vetting opportunities and applying to them. Another chunk of your time is spent following up on last week's application. So perhaps that's a chunk of your time on Tuesdays. Set aside a chunk of your time just to vet different networking opportunities, whether it's setting up informational interviews with people who make sense, RSVPing to different events that make sense. And I don't think you need to go to an event every night. That's ridiculous. It's unrealistic. No one's going to maintain that. But you do want to pick and choose what are some events coming up that are in your industry or with like-minded professionals where you could really see getting some value out of them. And if you're looking for resources for any of those things, I recommend checking out Eventbrite, Meetup. I'd even say go to the directory of associations, and we have links for all this. So my team will be sending them out, and I will also be including them in a recap article from this live chat. There's another really big one that I'm forgetting. 10times.com. That's a really good one. That gives you trade shows, conferences, anything that's industry-wide, global presence. Great way to find some really key opportunities to go to. So getting back to step 2, setting up a schedule, I recommend Mondays, online applications. Tuesdays, perhaps there's some follow-up going on the previous week's applications. Wednesday, Thursday, pick another day of the week. I'd focus on networking activities, whether it's corresponding with people you're meeting at events, following up with people you've spoken to, and this can be friends and family who's said they were willing to help or has a connection that they're willing to introduce you to. Make good on those promises that they put out there. Ask them if they will truly do it. If they put it out there, you got to follow up and see if they're willing to do it, and don't feel like you're nagging. Networking is not begging. Networking is an exchange of value, and you'll find ways to pay it forward. So dedicate a chunk of time to that. And then depending on what your job goal is, there may be some other types of professional development activities that you're going to put into that mix. If you are more seasoned, perhaps you are speaking directly with recruiters. If you're entry level, going straight to recruiters typically doesn't work as well. But if you're mid to senior level, you may be reaching out to recruiters. If you're looking for specific ones, in addition to those who are actively posting jobs and you can see that they're associated with those jobs, I recommend checking out Oya's directory of recruiters. We have a link for that. It's i-recruit.com. But I mean, the moral of the story is you need to discipline yourself, because you actually have to block off time on your calendar to dedicate to your job search and treat it as any other important meeting. It's a meeting with yourself. Whether it's after hours or early in the morning or on your lunch break, or you have the freedom to do it in the middle of the day, block off the time on your calendar and keep it as an appointment as you would a doctor's appointment. It can't just be sacrificed. You can't just trade it off or push it off to another day, because if you get yourself in a schedule and you think of it as another job and this is how you have to block off your time to perform that job, it's much easier to keep yourself on a steady pace. Most people who have a real challenge or get really down about the job search, because let's face it, it's not a fun process. Nobody enjoys it. It's a freaking roller coaster of emotions, and it's quite the journey, right? I think I used every metaphor I could right then. We know it's not fun. The fastest way to lose your momentum and lose your motivation is when you're applying to jobs and you don't hear back. Or you apply to a job, you think it's going somewhere, you stop all your other job search activities because you really think this one's gonna pan out, and then God forbid it doesn't work out and you're stuck starting at the bottom again because you haven't maintained this pipeline of job leads. That's the worst thing you can do for yourself, because it's probably one of the most demotivating things you can do. So if you set a schedule for yourself, if you're regularly applying to, and it depends on what you do and what you're targeting and the supply of jobs available, but in an ideal world, you want a minimum of 5 a week in positions that you're truly a good fit for and make sense given your job goals. And if you can actively follow up on those and then work your networking connections, you're on a steady pace. So a key to keeping your job search on track is setting that schedule and maintaining a consistent level of activity week over week. All right, everyone got it? For those who are just joining us, my name is Amanda Augustine. I'm a career advice expert for TopResume, the largest resume writing service in the world. And you can request a free resume review at any time by visiting topresume.com. You can also visit our blog by clicking the career advice button in the upper right-hand corner. And you can access all of our articles, all of my Q&A. There's a lot of great stuff there, so I definitely recommend checking it out. We're all about talking about how you can keep your job search momentum going so that you keep that New Year's resolution through February and truly land that job you're looking for. So step 1 was clarify your goals. Define those goals and write them down. Step 2 was developing a schedule for yourself. Set a schedule, so important. Block the time off on your calendar. Step 3, I say define your workspace. And I know that may sound silly, but again, it's all about getting in the mindset that your job search is a job. And if you're sitting in front of your TV doing it some days, you're in a coffee shop in other days, and sometimes you're doing it at work or whatever it is, it's really hard to get into that mentality that this is work and I need to do this and I need to focus on it and really put some energy behind it. So yeah, there's so many great things that happen with mobile technology. You can apply to jobs on the fly. You can respond to emails you receive wherever you may find yourself, as long as you have a smart device and an internet connection or a Wi-Fi connection, right? So those things are great, but you also need to dedicate some time to particular activities, to vetting job opportunities, and then applying to those jobs, customizing and tweaking your resume for the applications, all that kind of stuff. So I recommend carving out a workspace that's just for that. It could be the cafe around the corner from your house. It could be the spare bedroom or the basement in your home. It could be a WeWork space, somewhere completely different. It could be the public library. I gotta say, I work from home a couple days a week, and even though I have a room dedicated in my house to my, that's considered my office, I'll sometimes go to the library because I want to be in a different setting, and truly when I'm in the library, it's work time and I can't get distracted by, say, the load of laundry that I want to do, or, the dishes that I want to clean up because they're driving me nuts. So I do recommend defining your workspace and really establishing it for yourself. It is truly important, and wherever that workspace is, make sure your job goal is taped up somewhere. You want it front and center. You want to see it every day. We do that, a lot of companies do that, where you know what your company goals are, you tape them up next to your monitor because you want to keep them in mind as you're making decisions about the work you're focusing on. Same thing has to do with your job search. What are you focused on? What's the type of job you're going after? Put it front and center, somewhere you're going to see it, so you're more likely to keep it in mind as you're pursuing different job leads, talking to different networking connections. Step 4, establish milestones for yourself. And if you're not sure what those milestones should be, because you don't know really how to develop a job search strategy, you haven't done this in a while, or whatever you're doing isn't working for you, I do have a free guide that I can offer everybody. My team will also put it in our feed below. I call it the action plan to jumpstart your job search. And basically what I did is took you through all the steps to start preparing you for your job search. Because it's not just once you get into the habit of applying for jobs and networking and basically pursuing job leads, there's a whole lot of stuff you got to do before you even get into that. And if any of you skipped over some of that, now's the time to take a step back. Make sure you set the right foundation for your job search so that you can move forward knowing you are conducting a more effective job search. You can download this action plan completely free at topresume.com/job search jumpstart, and you can jumpstart your job search again. So definitely take a look at that. That's going to help you establish some of those milestones. Some of those milestones may be defining your job goals and writing them down. It could be as simple as updating your resume to make sure that it reflects your current job goal and highlights your qualifications. If you're not sure if your resume is doing that for you, or you're not too sure if you've optimized your resume to make sure that it will beat those bots, it's ATS friendly, it will make it past that recruitment software that typically scans your resume first before a human ever lays eyes on it. If you're not sure how your resume is performing, definitely request a free resume review at TopResume. Go to topresume.com. And find out what's going on there so you know what you may need to tweak, or if you want more help from a professional to take that burden off your plate so you can focus on other job search activities. You're going to want to update your LinkedIn profile. Have you customized your URL? Have you updated your profile picture so that's professional and friendly and isn't from 10 years ago? Have you established a professional summary and included the keywords that are echoed in your resume? Have you joined groups that make sense given the types of roles and the industry you're targeting? Have you Googled your name to see what's out there about yourself? Have you reached out and established at least 3 references, preferably someone above you, someone a similar level, and then someone you managed, or someone you worked with, somebody you mentored, or perhaps it's a vendor or a customer. But look for those opportunities and make sure you have at least 3, ideally 5 references on hand just in case anybody asks you about them. These are all milestones you can set up for yourself. And then after that, it's think about, am I applying to 5 jobs that I truly am a good fit for? And I actually have a good link to an article further down in this piece that talks about the questions you should ask yourself before you apply to a job, and also how to customize your resume to make sure that it speaks to a specific job description. You want to make sure you're doing that. So once we got through all the prep stuff and you've accomplished all of that, some of the other things to do are more maintaining a consistent level of activity. So applying to enough jobs on a regular basis, reaching out to networking connections, continuing to invest in your personal development to make sure you're building skill sets or staying sharp on skills that you know are necessary and will make you attractive for the job you're going after. I talk a lot about establishing milestones, and I threw a bunch of them out there. I do have to say, if you haven't checked it out, on TopResume's Facebook page, we have this ongoing challenge where we drop a tip every day for the month of January. You can still check them out. We created a Facebook event for it so that you would be able to see a collection of all of those tips. But there's one practical, tactical tip you can do every day during the work days for the month of January. Each week is kind of focused on a different part of your job search, but these little things will all help you set up your job search so that you're working smarter and not necessarily harder to get the job you want. So definitely check that out, and that's a great way to help you yourself set up some milestones. And yes, we recommend doing one a day, but be realistic. What's going to work for you? If you have to drag out those deadlines a little longer because that's what you need, do it. Just know there's also an impact on how long it's going to probably take you to land a job, but you have to be realistic with yourself. Putting a ton of pressure and stressing yourself out is not going to help you land a job sooner, and we know that. For anyone who's just joining us, my name is Amanda Augustine, career advice expert for TopResume. You can request a free resume review at any time by going to topresume.com, and we are talking about steps you can take to not only establish a more effective job search, but make sure that you're keeping that resolution and not letting it die out as we enter into February. Step 1 was define your job goals and write them down. Step 2 was setting a schedule. There are a bunch of activities you should be doing. That Jumpstart kit I mentioned, that action plan that you can download for free, that's a great way to help you establish some of those regular activities on a weekly basis. So definitely block off time on your calendar. Step 3 is about defining your workspace. Really go to work when it's time to look for a job. And I also recommend, and I know it may seem silly, dress as though you're going to work. Searching for a job in your PJs, while it seems great, it's kind of like working from home, and at times, it can affect your productivity. So consider, if you feel like you're in a funk and you have been, job seeking from your couch in your PJs, change it up and just see if a change in location, a change in how you're dressed, if that maybe affects your demeanor. How would you dress if you were just going to work? And that's different for everyone depending on what you do for a living and the company culture. But if you dress like that, it might make a difference. Give it a try. What do you have to lose, right? Step 4 is establish milestones. And again, I'm going to echo back to that free guide that you can download from us that my team has been mentioning in the news feed in this live chat. Definitely check that out. That will help you establish some of those milestones as you prep for your job search and as you get going into those ongoing activities. And the one thing I didn't mention before, but I want to make sure I say, is that reward yourself. And yeah, money might be tight, maybe it's not, whatever it is, find little ways to reward yourself. If you finally got that resume reviewed and you took the critique to heart and you started editing your resume, or you reached out to have it rewritten, pat yourself on the back. Indulge in a nice manicure or pedicure. Get a really nice glass of wine somewhere. I don't care. It could even be, hey, I'm locking the door and I'm taking a bubble bath and I'm not going to let the kids bother me. Whatever it is, find little ways to reward yourself, because again, the job search is long. You have to establish smaller, digestible milestones that makes it easier to make your way through the job search process. It seems a lot less overwhelming when you can break it down into smaller tasks. So give yourself a weekly goal, and if you achieve that goal, give yourself some small reward, whatever works for you. And last but not least, in these 5 steps, ask for help. And I know that's really hard. I know the job search can feel incredibly lonely. It can be very isolating. Nobody likes to talk about it. It's not something you want to bring up. And everyone dreads when somebody asks you, so how's the job search going? I know, I've been there, and I have plenty of friends and family and clients who have all been there, and I get it. It's not fun. But you know what? People are volunteering help because they truly care about you and they want to help you. Oftentimes, they don't know how to help you. So the most important thing is to figure out how can different people help you. If you have a clear idea of what your job goals are, tell them, this is the type of role I'm looking for. I'm really interested in talking to people who work for these companies or this industry or within this field. Do you happen to know anybody that you could introduce me to that you think would be willing to, get on the phone with me for 10 minutes or meet me for a cup of coffee, whatever it is. That's an easy way. Most people don't have a job available. The majority of the people who are your friends will not necessarily have a job available to hand you or to even share with you. But you know what? They all have different networks. And you'd be surprised who could be the key to finding your next job. 50% of job listings are never published online. Never. So 50% of the opportunities that are available out there, you're not going to find on a job board. I think it's important to still look at those job boards, pursue those job leads, and then leverage the heck out of your network to get an in over there. But realize that there's that other portion that you're never going to hear about unless you start talking to people. So the more people you talk to, the more they're aware of your goals and how you're qualified, the more likely you are to be put in contact with people who could help you. There's also little things, hey, it's your birthday coming up, there's an anniversary, something like that, ask for an untraditional gift. We have a really great job seeker holiday gift guide. Granted, it's not Christmas or Hanukkah anymore, but the holiday gift guide still holds true. So if you're looking for help and you have someone who you know is just wants to do something to help you, go look on that list and say, you know what? I really need some business cards that have my personal contact information. I would love a gift card to Moo. Could you do that for me? Or, you know what? I really need a new interviewing outfit. You know, I would love a gift card to name your store, whatever it is. I really feel uncomfortable interviewing. I feel like, you know, I'm getting to the interview, but then I'm never making it past that initial phone screen or that initial face-to-face. I'd love some interview coaching. It's available, by the way, topinterview.com. We offer sessions, 1, 2, 3 sessions, check it out. Everybody who takes it, from I've seen so far, loves it. So if that's an area you're struggling with, that's something you can also look into. But don't be afraid to ask for something. If they truly want to help, that's a way they can help you. Other ways, if it's a former colleague, perhaps they can write an endorsement on LinkedIn. Those are really useful. Or they can, you know, endorse your skill sets. They can write a recommendation. Look, there are a bunch of different ways that you can do it. So just keep in mind, people want to help. You just have to be willing to accept it, and you have to have the gumption to actually ask for it when you know that there is someone in your network who could truly help you. Run an advanced search on LinkedIn. Look for people who you know work in the industry you're after, the company you want to work for, and reach out and say, I'm really interested in this role, but before I put my hat in the ring, I would really like to talk to you and find out your experience at that company. Do you have 5-10 minutes? Can I take you out for a cup of coffee? Just want to learn about your experience there. That's going to help you decide if the opportunity is worthwhile to you, but it's also going to help you hopefully get that referral, and you are 10 times more likely to land the job when your application is accompanied by an employee referral. So once again, I want to save time for questions. I'm going to go a little over the end time because we started a little late due to a few technical difficulties. For some of you, I'm sure you saw me, I was a little bit sideways. Hopefully I'm right side up on your screen now. Step 1, define your goals, write them down. Step 2, set a schedule, block off time on your calendar. And if you're doing this from home, share with your family. This is my time to work, that I am closing the door, you know, do not disturb. Step 3, define a workspace. And I'd even say switch it up. If what you've been doing isn't working for you, try a change of scenery. Tony Robbins is always in that thing of change your state, change your mind, give it a whirl. Try dressing as though you're going to work when you're going to look for work. It really can help with the mindset. It's simple, it's silly, I swear it does make a difference. Establish milestones for yourself. Check out that free action plan that I mentioned, topresume.com/job search jumpstart. Download it, look at the different activities, set time on your calendar, and then set goals for yourself. Set a goal every week. You know, break it down as you need to in order to make it work with your lifestyle. And then reward yourself when you meet those milestones. You have to have mini celebrations, mini victories along the way because it's a freaking long journey and you need those mini victories along the way to keep you motivated. I know the end goal and the win is to land the job, but there are victories along the way. You may not realize how important they are, but they are important because they're laying the foundation for a really effective job search. And then number 5, ask for help. Ask for tips, talk to people you know, use the free resources that are out there. I think I have on the list here a really great link to free job search tools that we offer. That's definitely one. It's not just tools we offer. We do have a number, besides a free critique, we do have a number of free guides you can access and things of that nature. But we also did a roundup of different apps and services that are completely free that will help you work smarter and not harder when it comes to your job search. So definitely check those out. And now I would love to open it up to questions. I know there was one from Walter that came in maybe about 5 minutes before we started. So Jenna, if that works for you, I'd like to start with that one, and then if you could let me know what else people are saying. All right. So this is from Walter. Walter, we've never met, but we have been Twitter buddies for quite some time. Thank you for sending in this question. And he said, I've sent out hundreds, in capital letters, of resumes and never once got a call back. How do I shape my resume to make it more impactful? And I hear this all the time. It's, the resume black hole. Oh God, the resume black hole sucks. And we all know it. There are a few things. One, Walter, before you apply to another job, take a step back and make sure you have a clear set of goals. Because I think when the job search starts getting rough or you're not finding enough jobs in your area, there is that tendency to start applying to things that may not necessarily fit into those initial set of goals. So the net gets cast a little wider. And in some cases, honestly, that's a good thing. Maybe the job search is too narrow. But I take a step back and say, okay, what are those goals? What is that type of job? And if you're still not sure, you just want something different, I'd also start talking to people who have a similar background but maybe doing something different, and just understand, how did they stumble into that? Because oftentimes your skills are transferable to other industries that you would have never considered. A really great tip when you're trying to do some of that investigative work, run an advanced search on LinkedIn and look for people who previously worked at the same company as you. And just see what pops up. If you can narrow it by an industry or field, even better. But I love to look at people who worked at the same company I currently or previously worked for and see where have they gone since then. Because you can get a lot of inspiration. Doesn't matter if they work in your location or not, but it looks at what other industries have they gone to. And it may open you up to new opportunities and new fields that you may have not considered. So keep that in mind. 2, if you haven't, please submit your resume for a free critique. Let's see what's going on with it. There may be some obvious tweaks that need to be made because it's not getting past the applicant tracking system. We talk a lot about applicant tracking systems at TopResume because, for one, I don't think a lot of people truly know what they are, understand them, or are aware that they exist. In case this is news to anybody, when you submit an application, 9 times out of 10, there's a piece of technology that's reading your application, reviewing it, scanning it, and kind of ranking it based on the job you applied for before a human ever sees it. And it's known as an applicant tracking system. It's a piece of software, but honestly, it should be called an applicant tossing system because its job is really not to help hiring managers and recruiters identify the best candidates. Its job is to eliminate the worst candidates, the ones that seem the least fit or the most ill-qualified for the role. Problem is, if your resume isn't formatted properly, even if you are qualified, the applicant tracking system may deem you unqualified. And so there are a lot of nuances based on what format are you saving your resume in when you upload it? Are you using the headers? Did you get fancy with the design that frankly an applicant tracking system cannot read and does not understand? Are you grouping sections together that really need to be separated so the system can read it appropriately? There's a ton of nuances that go into it. So that could be a reason why you're not hearing back. No one's ever seen your application. I'd also say make sure you set up saved search results or saved searches on different job boards because you want to know about jobs the moment they get posted. You want to apply for that position within 72 hours of it hitting the site. And that definitely makes a difference. The early bird truly does get the worm. And third, make sure you're customizing the resume. That's really important. I do not recommend an overhaul of your resume for every job application. That's silly, that's unrealistic, and frankly, if you're overhauling it every time, you're applying to very different jobs and your job search is not focused enough. But you do want to make sure that you're customizing and you're calling out the highlights that are most relevant to the job you're going after. So I actually recommend when you're brainstorming your resume, make a list of bullets under each job that talk about your main contributions, your main bragging points. I always say bragging points equal bullet points. Any measurable success you can think of. And then depending on the job you're applying for, you decide which ones belong in that list or not. Because some things, some of those braggable points will be more desirable for some roles versus others. It's really all about what's in the job description. So I hope that helps. I hope you were tuning in, Walter. If not, I hope you read this article and watch this video after the fact. What is my next one? Joy.
So we have a question from Christopher.
Hi, Chris.
He says, thank you for your help. He's listening. And how does one correctly notate a period of time on a resume where he was a caregiver for his mom?
It's a really, really good question. If you took time out of work because you were caring for a sick loved one, whether it's a parent, a family, a child, or even your own health, how do you account for that period of time? First thing is, I try not to draw a ton of attention to it on the resume or get too detailed in your explanation. Your cover letter's probably a better spot for that. However, you do want to put something in there so they're aware that the time gap is for a good reason and you weren't sitting at home twiddling your thumbs, for the fun of it. What I recommend is placing it in your resume or your work experience as though it was another job. And what I would put is, caregiver, and then, put the time period and just put below it, took a work sabbatical to care for ailing parent. And then if there's anything you were doing to maintain your skill set while you were doing that, whether you were just, whether you were taking an online course or you were, you did anything that you can say is part of professional development, you may add one additional line there that says, continue to remain abreast to trends in industry, or, actively completed, coursework on Udemy and CourseX on these topics to maintain skill set. If you can throw anything out there like that, all the better. If you were doing any little projects on the side, any type of freelance work or something like that, I would instead actually put yourself as a freelancer or a contractor and just put a little blurb about the types of projects you took on and then a bullet or two that describes a particular project. If that's not if that's not true and you can't do that, stick with my first suggestion. But if there's any way that you can, kind of downplay the work you were doing as a caregiver and focus more on something you were doing that kind of kept your hand in your industry a little bit, I think all the better. So I hope that helps.
Okay, we have a question from another Amanda.
Oh, lovely name.
I have over 15 years of experience in my field, but I eventually would like to make a change into a new position. Okay. How do I know when it's the right time to make that full-time leap?
That's a great question, Amanda. Strong career, all in one area, want to make a change, how do you know? I love that you bring this up because I think it's really important that what's so nice about today's workplace versus something, 15 plus years ago or our parents' generation is that you're not expected to stay at a job for 20 years and get your gold watch and call it a day, that you can have a lot of different chapters to your career and you can try a lot of different things. How do you know if it's the right time for you? I am definitely risk averse. If anybody knows me, you know that I'm not a huge risk taker. It's just not in my DNA. I would like to be a little bit more, but it's not happening. So I'm always going to err on the side of caution, where I'd say dip your toe in before you make the leap over. You may ultimately need to make that commitment and completely switch over, but as with any major transition, I think it's important to test it out a little bit and make sure it's right for you. So it really depends on how dramatically you want to change. Are we just going from corporate America and you want to go off on your own and own your own business, or freelance? Or you want, I have a friend who's been a lawyer forever, but honestly, she wants to be a CrossFit gym owner in a million years. I don't know if she'll ever admit it to herself, but I know that's truly where she'd be most passionate and happiest. If it's a more dramatic change, like something like that, obviously it's something you probably want to dip your toes into. Do the research. I would seek a mentor, 100%. You want to find somebody who's doing the work that you want to do. They may not have made a dramatic change from a different career, and that's okay. If they have, oh my gosh, please jump on that. You know, meet them immediately, befriend them, find ways to pay it forward so they're willing to share their pearls of wisdom. But if it's somebody who's in that industry, I think it's really important to find them, whether they're thought leaders, they're active on social media talking about what they're doing, they're speaking at events that you're going to because it's related to what you're interested in. But really find somebody and just let them know how much you admire their career, how you love what they're doing, and you're really interested in exploring if it's the right career move for you. I think this will not only help cement that is this the right path for you, because when you have those types of conversations, you really want to get the good, the bad, and the ugly. What's great about this lifestyle or career path? What are some of the drawbacks? What are things you need to know going into it? But you also want to find out, okay, well, what are some of the first steps I would need to take? What don't I have an understanding of or background in that I need to play catch up on so that I can be more educated in my approach to this career path? And then in terms of making the switch, I gotta say a lot of it has to do with your financial situation. You know, in some instances you can't make a full leap because when you're making that leap, you may be out of a paycheck for a while. So you may have to do halvesies for a while. You may want to switch to more freelance positions so you can focus on developing this career, or, you know, reduce your responsibilities at work so you can focus on this other path. Maybe you have the luxury where there's somebody else and you're in a dual income household where you have the luxury of saying, you know what, I'm going to take 6 months off and I'm going to try this. But I gotta say, unfortunately, there's no way for me to say this is the moment for you. You gotta weigh the pros and cons. I think before you make any decision, you have to have a better understanding of what it's going to take and the steps that are necessary to enter that new career path. So really look for mentors. Look for other people who have done it. Believe it or not, you run a random Google search, you'd be amazed by what you find. You know, banker turned florist. Guaranteed. Not that I've run the search, but guaranteed there's something out there about that. You will find people in situations, and the more people you talk to, the more likely you are to find those people, and they're going to be key in helping you make that transition. It's really going to be up to you as to when you want to flip the switch and go all in. And that's going to have a lot to do with your own personal details. So I hope that helps. We definitely have some articles, and they're not exactly, we have an article about, you know, getting a second career. I will say that's definitely focused more on those who are, say, you know, towards the end of their career and suddenly want to take on something else. But I think there's still some good information in there that will help you. Look up the term re-careering. Again, typically is focused on people who may have taken some time off to raise children and are getting back in the workforce, or, you know, basically worked, are in their 50s and now want to do something completely different. So it's not a perfect match, but I still think there's some advice there that will really help you. Also, we did a live chat, one of these office hours, I think in November, that was just dedicated to changing careers. Jenna, if you can find that link and share that one, I think that would be really useful for Amanda. So definitely check out that one, because there's an entire video of me rambling off my tips, but also there's a really nice follow-up with additional links and resources that will help you out. So I wish you the best of luck with your search.
We have our next question from David.
Hi, David.
He asks, should I minimize my resume to find that in-between job? He's turned down jobs due to being overqualified, so he needs to find in between.
Okay, yeah. A lot of people face this problem. Being overqualified for a job is just as challenging as being underqualified, whether you believe it or not. Normally, overqualified translates to, we think you are going to ask for too much money, we're budgeting less for this position, so we're pretty sure you're not going to want it anyway, and you'd be too expensive. And or two, we think this job's below you, you're going to get bored and leave us. It's expensive to hire someone. We don't want to have to hire somebody again because you get bored and leave after 3 months. Those are typically the two reasons. There's actually, I've been really active on Quora lately. I don't know if you guys are on it, Quora.com. It's my new favorite place to find job search questions and just answer them at random. One of my good pals, Vicky Salemi, she is a career expert at Monster. She wrote an answer specifically about being overqualified recently, and I thought it was a really great answer. So definitely worth checking out if you hit up that site. If you keep getting overqualified, I hate the idea of dumbing down someone's resume. It sounds awful. I don't even like it coming out of my mouth. If you are trying to get a role though that has less responsibility, and a lot of people find this, their priorities shift and like, you know what, I don't want to do all of that. I would like to do something else for a while. Yeah, you're probably going to want to play down some of your experience, which is so counterintuitive to most resume writing, because the whole point is to brag in a very modest way about everything you do, right? And how you're so amazing and have all these great qualifications. As with any resume, when you're customizing it for a particular role, you want to go back to what are they looking for and how can I show that I'm a perfect fit for that. So they're looking for 6 years of this type of experience. Focus on showcasing the 6 most recent years of your experience. And maybe you don't go through your entire work history. Maybe you have a career note or you have some earlier experience section and you just say, additional experience includes work doing X, Y, and Z at X, Y, and Z companies, additional details available upon request. That might be a way to get around it. You don't want your professional summary to say 20 plus years or 15 plus years experience doing X, Y, and Z. You just avoid that altogether and just say, accomplished X type of professional with experience doing X, Y, and Z. So just avoid adding the numbers altogether. You do have to have numbers in your work history. You just may not go back as far in your resume. And really stick to the information that's most relevant. I think you're also going to find it's helpful if you work your network a little bit. If you truly are talking to people and saying, this is the kind of role I'm looking for. I don't want the 60-hour work week and the salary that goes along with it. I'm really looking for something like this because I'm focusing on other parts of my life or my career right now. That typically helps because, again, anytime you have a networking connection that's vouching for you, advocating on your behalf, it will get you past those initial screens by both the software, the bots, and that entry-level sourcer who may throw you out of the running because you look overqualified. And I think you have to be very, very honest if you're making it to the interview round and then they're knocking you out. I think you have to be very honest that, hey, this is my focus now. This is what I'm looking to do. I'm a steal. You're getting all this experience to do this type of role. I'm going to help you take it to the next level, and you're going to get it at a fraction of the cost. Who wouldn't want that? And look how you can spin being overqualified as actually a deal for the employer. And perhaps they can use you in other areas too. Always throw that out there. I hope that helps though.
So we have a question from Lashia.
Hi, Lashia.
How do I prepare for an internal interview?
Ooh.
She's been in her position now for 9 years.
Oh, I like it. Okay, how do you prepare for an internal interview? Letitia,
Lashaya.
I'm sorry, Lashaya. I have a friend named Lashaya. One thing I'd recommend doing is that, hey, if you are feeling uncomfortable and it's been, obviously you've been at your career for 9 years, you haven't been searching, I'm assuming you haven't been actively searching for jobs and interviewing, you may want to check out the interview coaching so that you can do a mock interview with a professional and get some feedback. So that's at topinterview.com. But that aside, when you're trying to prepare, we have a really great article. It was actually our office hours in October, ? Maybe November? November. It was definitely November. We did one all about interviewing. And the reason I want to point to that is because that will go into a lot more detail than I'm going to be able to cover in this video chat right now. But check that out because it has a ton of links and articles, as well as I gave a lot of different advice just on every area of the job search process. That article starts out and basically gives you step-by-step what to do to prepare for the interview, what to do during the interview, and what to do after the interview. So consider that article. It's one of our recap articles on office hours. It's basically your guide. It's the ultimate guide to everything you need to know about searching for a job, interviewing for a position. Now, when it's internal, it's a little different because you know the environment. Obviously, they like you. You've been there for 9 years. What I think is really important is find out as much as you can about the people who will be interviewing you. Treat it like a legitimate, formal interview. I know I experienced this issue earlier in my career, granted, so I was a little naive, but I was interviewing with my boss basically to go into another group, and he was responsible for an initial interview, which is a little weird, but I took it way too casually. I took it for granted, and he had some real hard-hitting questions for me, and I was not at all prepared to get those types of questions because I was like, don't they love me? I've been here for a while. So I think it's really important to understand whatever position you're going for, who will you be speaking to, and get a sense of just what can you learn about them? What do you know? Find out from your other colleagues if you don't have, if it's somebody that you're not very familiar with. 2, really look at what is the job you're applying for, interviewing for. What are they looking for? And write down, I would brainstorm, how has the work you've been doing at that company, and even things you've been doing outside of that company, prepared you and made you qualified for the role you're going after. And if there's anything in there that's maybe a stretch because you haven't had an opportunity to really gain that type of experience or learn that type of information on the job, what I'd recommend doing is, how can you show them that you're taking steps to personally develop and learn that information? I had a friend who was looking to go into like a different area of the company. It involved knowing a lot of different industry information. And so she made sure that she understood what didn't she understand. And she went out and she was researching it so that when she got to interview, she can say, I know that I haven't dealt with X, Y, and Z, but from what I've been researching online, what I've learned from talking to our other colleagues is that it basically means like this, it operates like that, which is actually kind of similar to what I've been doing over here, just a little different. So any way that you can draw parallels to the work you've been doing and show how it applies to the role that you're going after, all the better. If you are looking for, maybe it's a step up and not necessarily a completely different type of job, you want to really think about what have you been doing over the last 9 years, over the last year or so, that's been really making a mark in the company. How have you been providing value? How have you been contributing to the company's bottom line? And it may be very inadvertently. Maybe what you're doing helps set other people up to do well in their role. Maybe you're providing the information necessary for other people to make decisions that has an impact on the bottom line. But really, I definitely have a link somewhere in that in our ongoing document about building your brag book. And I think it's really important. If you don't have a brag book, now's the time to make one. Take a step back and what have you been doing? What extra responsibilities have you taken on? What wins have you had, either as a contributor or as an achiever? But really think about that and go into that interview armed with that information. This is what I've been doing for the company, and I know I can do that for you over in this role. Especially what specifically translates that helps you meet the qualifications for that job. If they haven't given you a formal job description, ask for one, because it will definitely help you. They may not have one, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And have questions prepared that show you've done your homework. And again, that's going to go back to that guide that I mentioned that's in our November office hours recap. Check out that because there's a list of questions in there. Be prepared to ask some questions that show that you're truly passionate and dedicated to making this move. I hope that helps.
So we have a great question from Julianne.
Okay.
She works at a privately owned company.
Okay.
So many of her contacts are connected with her current employer. Do you have any advice or tips around that? She'd like to tap into unlisted opportunities.
Is Julianne still active? Can I? Julianne, is when you say unlisted opportunities, are you talking about opportunities within your current private company? Meaning that they don't have a company job board or an internal job board like a big organization, or opportunities completely in a different company?
Let's see.
I can wing it, but I'd rather try and provide specific information.
I'm assuming she doesn't want her current employer to know that she's
okay.
looking for a
So
job.
most of my network is at my current company, and I want to look for a job on the sly. So what in the world do I do?
If Julianne chimes in, I'll let you know. if
Okay,
I'm wrong.
thank you. All right, Julianne, what I'd recommend, update your LinkedIn profile. Make sure you fix your security settings so it's not going to blast out to your network every time you make a change. But definitely get that LinkedIn profile in shape, because I'm going to want you to connect like crazy to people that it hasn't occurred to you to connect with in the past. So there is a way you can go into the privacy settings. You can make sure that any changes you make aren't broadcast. You can even make it so people can't see who you're connected to. So if your number of connections suddenly skyrockets, no one's going to notice. There are a lot of nice little privacy settings there. They're a pain in the butt, but once you figure it out, it's really useful. And then I'm going to say, take a few steps back and say, okay, who are my friends? Am I connected to my friends on LinkedIn? I can't tell you how many times I stumble across someone and go, how are we not connected yet? Yeah.
So Julianne says she means more networking in a different company.
Okay, perfect. That was the yes. Way to go, Jenna, for interpreting that one. Gold star. So I'd recommend definitely thinking about who are your friends, connecting to them. Who are customers or vendors or clients that your company deals with? Who are the people that you've been talking to? Connect with them. But I'd actually go back to some advice I was giving earlier at the very beginning of this talk before we got into Q&A about identifying networking opportunities. They don't all have to be professional associations, but I do think it's important if you want to pursue networking connections outside of your company, but it's a similar industry. Go to the directory of professional associations and look for groups to join and hit up their meetings. Go to meetup.com. I know everyone's like, what? But meetup.com is actually useful. It has a lot of events and meetups, gatherings of people who are like-minded, who maybe you love horseback riding or you love, I don't know, decoupage, something like that, whatever. So you can find things with people that have personal interests, but there are also lots of groups on there that are specific to industries or functions. So there's definitely one for accounting professionals in New York City. Lots of groups like that. So those may be ways to kind of dip your toe into networking if you haven't done a lot of it. Try something that's a bit more informal, something that you find on like a Facebook event that's an actual live, in-person event. Meetup groups, join a couple of those groups, look for their opportunities. Check out Eventbrite, that's another place where you might find some. And then go to places like 10times.com and look for larger events where, hey, maybe your company would even send you there because you want to make more connections and you can find a legitimate reason that it would be good for the company, and you can also increase your network as a result. So I'd say definitely look for those types of opportunities. And if this is because you want to pursue job opportunities elsewhere, get a set of business cards. It will cost you $25, really. You don't have to spend a ton of money, but have a second set of business cards that you can hand out at these events that don't have your company information on them. So no matter where you are, you can still network, and you can then coordinate things through your personal email and on LinkedIn, and not necessarily on company equipment or company software.
So we have, I think, time for 2 more questions if we can do them quickly.
Okay.
So one comes in from Blake.
Okay. Hi, Blake.
He's been working for himself in construction,
Okay.
and he has an interview tomorrow
So exciting.
for a forklift operator position.
Okay.
What are some tips to help him feel comfortable?
Great question. Well, the beauty is it's your industry, right? You know this type of industry. You probably have even a sense of the type of people you'll be interviewing with. So that's going to make things comfortable because you're talking to people who talk the same talk. And that's a great thing. I think the biggest thing you need to keep in mind and stuff that you need to be aware of is that when you're going from being an independent contractor working for yourself and you're going to interview to work within a larger organization, everyone's biggest concern when they're interviewing you is, Can you play? Can you be a team player? Can you work with the team? You definitely want to emphasize your experience and the fact that you know what you're doing, and cite those examples. You know, be ready for them to like test your technical knowledge and that sort of thing. But what you want to try and demonstrate through your interview is that you're really excited to be part of a larger team again, that you've been working on your own for a while and it's been great, but you really miss working on a site with a bunch of buddies that you see every day or something like that. I think the more you can emphasize that you're not trying to run the show and take over and be the business owner, that you want to take on this role because frankly it's something you've been wanting to do for a while, whether that's true or not. That's the sentiment you want to get across. I would be prepared, check out on Glassdoor actually, depending on the size of the company you're interviewing with. They may even have some sample questions that are typically asked for that type of interview, just so you have a sense of what you're getting yourself into. If you know anybody who currently works at the company, I would definitely reach out to them as soon as you're done with this live chat and say, hey, what was it like when you interviewed? Do you know who's going to be in charge? You know what type of questions I should be prepared for? Anything I should be thinking about before I walk through that door? I think those are things that are really important to keep in mind. But generally the thing that immediately struck me is, hey, when you've been owning your own business and you're going back into the corporate world or back into an organization, their biggest fear is that you don't want to be a cog and you're going to try and run the show and you're not going to play well with others. And so anything you can do to kind of reassure them that you're actually really excited to be working as part of a team again, I think will probably help your cause. And just be prepared to demonstrate that you know what you're doing. There's like that fine line between, having a big ego and being confident, and you want to definitely just walk that line. I hope that helps. Best of luck.
Blake says thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Last one. Diane has 32 years of customer service experience. She's 58 years old and now looking for a job. Any tips since she's on the older side?
So annoying. I know the age discrimination thing is ridiculous, and you have such a wealth of experience that it's incredible. A few things that I'm going to point out really quick that probably have to do with your resume is focus on only the last 10 to 15 years of your experience. That's what you want to detail out and talk about what you've been doing. In addition to that, you can then either put a earlier career history section where you can just list titles and company names and locations with no dates, or you can do a career note and say earlier experience includes work as a blah 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 type, or includes work in these types of roles at the following companies, additional details available upon request. So keep that short and sweet, focus on the most recent years of experience. Remove the dates for any certifications or degrees that are beyond that 15-year window. Still put the degree, put the certification information down, but just remove the dates. Most people know what that means, but at least it won't necessarily filter you out from an applicant tracking standpoint because they're thinking that you have too many years of experience for the job. Something else to keep in mind, and I know it sounds silly, but I would ask you to look at your email address. And is it an Optimum Online? Is it a Comcast.net? People are unfairly discriminated against when they're not using something like, a Gmail or even a Yahoo or something that's more considered an up-to-date email address or up-to-date email provider. There's an assumption that if you're older, you can't handle technology. So you want to do anything you can to combat that awful perception. So that's something that I would focus on. If through any of your experience you've been trained in some of the latest technologies or anything where you can throw in the jargon that has to do with customer support and the systems you've worked on and what you understand about that kind of stuff, I'd throw that in there because that makes you more valuable. something else to keep in mind is that when you're writing out your cover letter, you want to emphasize, like, I've been doing this for a while. I love what I do. This is what I care about. I'm passionate about helping customers resolve their issues in a timely manner and basically creating a win-win for the organization and our customers. I look forward to doing that for you and your customer base. Like, go with that message. You're obviously good at what you do if you've been doing it for this many years. You have a solid career. Play that up. People need to see that. And leverage your network. You've been in the industry a while. People move around in those types of roles. Definitely talk to people that you've worked with in the past, see where they're working today, find out if there are opportunities available, and ask them to pass your resume along. You're 10 times more likely to land that job when your application is accompanied by a referral. Not everybody's looking for customer service reps that are like the breeding grounds for every other department. There are plenty of companies that want a steady, customer-focused, compassionate, understanding person who can talk to their customers in a considerate and patient way. And my guess is that if you've been doing this for this long, Diane, you're one of those people. So make that information shine. Make sure it's more than just I have this many years of experience, and let that passion on your LinkedIn profile and your resume really shine through about why you love what you do.
So we do have one more.
Okay.
Levon has a great question. He wants to know what the top 5 cliches in 2018 are that people should avoid when writing a resume.
The top cliches. Oh, like the fluffy. Levon, can you clarify? Are you near him that you can clarify? Are we talking about like the fluffy marketing terms, like specific phrases, or just like things people do that drive recruiters crazy on resumes?
Let's see.
So while I was working on that, I'll kind of throw out some stuff. Really interesting. We're actually running, we're about, which one is it?
They're correct. So I guess the fluffy marketing term.
The fluffy marketing
Things that people should avoid in general.
Okay.
Top 5.
So what's interesting is that we're getting ready to run a survey with recruiters to find out what are kind of their resume deal breakers, what are the things that drive them nuts and immediately make them say, your resume is off the pile because I don't have time for this. So I'll be very excited to share that with you in the coming month. That said, I do not know, I haven't run the survey to see like what are the absolute top ones, but I would say the fluffy, everyone hates hearing, you're a team player, or you're a leader, you're motivated, you thrive in a fast-paced environment. And I gotta say, I use these. I'm a resume writer. I've done this for many, many years. And frankly, when you're filling out a professional summary, you're gonna throw a little of that fluff in. It's nearly impossible to avoid it entirely. That said, you wanna minimize the fluff and make sure you're backing everything up with substance. What I think drives recruiters crazier than anything else is that when you call yourself a team player and that's all you say, you just describe yourself. You're like, I'm a team player, I'm motivated, I'm self-driven. Okay, that's great. I could say I'm purple. What does that mean? Whatever you're going to state in that professional summary that describes you as a professional and what you consider to be a qualification, make sure you're backing it up with facts in your actual resume, in the work experience. So don't say you're a great team player, say how, as a result of the collaboration with your team, you guys were able to accomplish X, Y, and Z, or you were able to come together and improve a process that had been really inefficient in the past. Don't say you're a great team leader, have a bullet how under your leadership, your team of 5 sales reps, surpassed their quota or beat their quota by, 25% and won, the award for your district. So I think it really comes down to anything where it's those fluffy adjectives that truly don't really mean anything or don't actually demonstrate that you possess a quality, are things that recruiters frown upon. What's most important is that you think about, okay, if I am those things, how do I demonstrate how do I actually show them I possess those skills based on how I've contributed to a team or a result that I've helped create. I hope that helps. It's exactly what you think it is. It's all those fluffy terms, and if you run a quick search, I'm pretty sure we probably have an article on our site too. If you go to topresume.com and click on career advice, guaranteed we have something about like fluffy terms to avoid. But really it comes down to, hey, they're there. You're probably gonna have to incorporate a few in there. Just make sure you back it up. How do you demonstrate that you possess that quality, and that quality is truly something that your prospective employers would care about. I know we're out of time. I want to thank everybody who hung with us till the end for joining us for our very first office hours of 2018. Again, keep checking out our Facebook page to see when our next event is. We have another one in February. I want to say it's on the 21st, but don't, February 21st. But also, if you have any questions, check out our site. You can submit a question through Ask Amanda or on Quora. I look forward to seeing you next month. Take care, everyone.